Hey there, Dr. CAROLYN Snodgrass here. This video is about long division. Always remember that rules don't change, only the numbers do. Let's get started. The procedure of long division can be summed up in this acronym: Does my sister chew bugs and rats? The very first step will always be divide, then the next step will be multiply, then subtract, then check, bring down, and repeat. You will always go in this order over and over again, and it will never go out of order if you do it correctly. A little bit of Jeopardy fun. Henry Briggs, in around the 1600s, came up with this apparatus that we use to help us do long division problems with larger numbers. In his technique, he uses divide, multiply, subtract, check, bring down, and repeat. We don't use remainders as much anymore. For purposes of this video and any decimal videos that I do, we'll use just repeat. In long division, your eye will follow around the outside, and as you go, you'll be going around the outside over and over again. We will start with divide, and we're dividing by this number out front. We will divide it into the first number, and if it doesn't go, we'll divide it in the first two numbers. In this case, it divides into the first number. Some people will say 3 divided by 2. I like to say, how many times does 2 go into 3? So 2 goes into 3 one time, and we will write the answer right above it. It needs to be lined up, and that is very important. Once you divide, you will now be at the multiply step. You will multiply these two numbers and write it right below the number you just divided into. 1 times 2 is 2. Now we're ready for the subtract step. These two numbers are what you're subtracting. You will go ahead and write your subtract in a line, then go ahead and subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. Next is what I consider one of the most important steps that's often overlooked. We need to check to see if the number that we just finished with our subtraction is smaller than the number out front. If it is not, that means that we need to reconsider what we got as an answer here. Possibly we didn't take out enough or took out too much. Now that we've checked that 1 is less than 2, we are ready to bring down the next number. The next step is to repeat. Now we're back to divide. Instead of using the 31 at the top, I'm going to now use this number at the bottom to divide by 2, and I will write my answer here. 2 goes into 11 5 times. Next, we're ready for multiply. We're going to take the 5 and multiply it by the 2 and write our answer here. 5 times 2 is 10. Then we're ready for subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1, and then 1 minus 1 is 0. Before we move on, we need to check. Is 1 less than 2? Yes. So we're ready to move on. The next step is to bring down the next number. Then we repeat. We are now back to divide, and we will use the answer we just got divided by 2 and write our answer right above that 4. 2 goes into 14 7 times. We're ready for multiply. That's 7 times 2, and write it below your 14. 7 times 2, 14. Next is subtract. We want to make sure we double check. 0 less than 2, yes. Since it's a 0 and there's no more to bring down, we are done and don't need to repeat. What you've seen are the basic steps that don't change. Or in long division, you will be using decimals. That's in another video. Let's go on to some more examples. Division problems can take on many forms. Often they're written with the division symbol in them, and they're also written as fractions, but they really mean the same thing. Either the first dog gets the doghouse or the top dog gets the doghouse. Here's what I mean. The first dog, 16 is the first dog, gets the doghouse. Again, the first dog gets the doghouse. And when it's written as a fraction, the top dog gets the doghouse. First dog or the top dog. So in other words, if you have dogs, you know what I mean, the bully dog gets the doghouse. But now let's get into a little bit more detail with a few more examples. Let's start with the divide step. We will go 8 does not go into 3, but 8 will go into 31. And how many times? It will go in 3 times. Now let's do our multiply step. So 3 times 8 is 24. Then next we're going to subtract. In this subtraction problem, you'll have to pull from your old bag of tricks on borrowing. The next step is extremely important. You need to check. You need to check to see if this 7 or this number at the bottom is less than this number out front. If it is less than that, you can proceed. If it is not, you need to reconsider what you divided by, because that means you took out too much or not enough. Extremely important before you move on, and it helps keep you from making mistakes, especially when you get into the zeros. In this next step, we're ready to bring down. We have not finished. We still have more to go. So we have to consider where the decimal is in this case. On a whole number, it's at the end. Then what we can do is put in a 0 in the next spot. While I'm there, I might write a few more just to save me from having to do it later. This is only to put in the spots. You do not throw the 0 on top. When we were first learning long division, there are shortcuts. Unless there is a mathematical reason to put a 0 on top, don't do it. The only reason I put in these zeros underneath the bar here is for placeholders. Okay, so we're still at the bring down step because we subtracted, we checked it, and now we can bring down that 0. Now we repeat and we go back to our division. Instead of dividing from the 31 up here now, we divide from this guy down here. And we're going to write our answer up here. So 8 goes into 70 8 times. Next step is multiply. 8 times 8 is 64. Next step is subtract. And again, we are going to need to borrow. Once we subtract, now we check. Is 6 less than 8? Yes. Then bring down. And I suggest to always draw these arrows. And now repeat. We're back to divide. 8 goes into 67 times. Now multiply. 7 times 8 is 56. Now subtract. Now check. Is 4 less than 8? Yes. So we bring down and we repeat. 8 goes into 40 5 times. Now multiply. 5 times 8 is 40. Subtract. And we check it. Is 0 less than 8? Yes. We're at 0. We're done. There's no more to bring down. And that's our answer. 3.8725. Now let's scoot this over. Now I'd like to show you an example of another problem that has zeros in it, because a common mistake students make has to do with zeros. So like before, we're on the divide step. So 2 goes into 4 2 times. Now let's multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. Then subtract. Now check it. Is 0 less than 2? Yes. Now bring down. Here's where a lot of students get really stuck. There is a shortcut that teachers taught us on this, but a lot of students get stuck. So I tell people, treat 0 like any other number. So let's go back over. We're ready for divide. 2 goes into 0 0 times. Now multiply. 0 times 2 is 0. Go ahead and do the steps with the 0 in it. If it was a 5 or it was a 2 or any other number, you'd know what to do. But the fact that it's a 0 and we learned that there was a shortcut in there somewhere messes a lot of students up. So we subtracted and we got a 0. Now let's check it. Is 0 less than 2? Yes. So bring down that 1 and repeat. Divide. 2 goes into 1 0 times. Now multiply. 0 times 2 is 0. Then subtract. Now check it. Is 1 less than 2? Yes. So bring down. and repeat. Divide. 2 goes into 10 how many times? 5 times. And multiply. 5 times 2 is 10. Now subtract and check it. Is 0 less than 2? Yes. Bring down and repeat. Divide. 2 goes into 4 twice. Now multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. Now subtract and then check it, and no more to bring down. The reason I bring up this math problem is because of the freak out people have with the shortcuts. Again, treat 0 like any other number. Okay, in this example to the right, I am going to divide by a 2-digit number. Earlier we divided by 1-digit numbers, but here it's a 2-digit number. The math is still the same, only the number is different. So a little advice that I use for students is I like to go off to the side and I like to just multiply 33 times 3 times 6 and 33 times 9. I just kind of do the smaller numbers, medium numbers, than the large numbers. And instead of doing all 9, I just write it over here. Then I can use these kind of as a gauge, and if I need to go between some numbers I can, but I don't have to multiply all 9 of them out there off the side. Just a kind of cool little thing of advice. Just like we did before, we start with the divide step. So 33 goes into 56 once. Then we multiply. 1 times 33 is 33. Then we subtract. And here's where this check step is very helpful as well. 23 is less than 33. Yes. Now we bring down our next number. Then repeat. Divide. 33 goes into 231. Well, it looks like it's going to be between these two, and it's probably closer to this one, so it's probably times 7. So I'll just rewrite that and out here. Ooh, luckily we got it. And we just finish that multiply. We already have it off to the side. And subtract. Check it. Looks like 0 is less than 33. There's no more to be done, so we're done. The main thing with long division is you remember these steps. It's still the same steps. Remember, for decimals, watch my other video. Next, I want to show you something very handy. You can always check your answers by multiplying the number out front and your answer. So 33 times 17, and your answer should get you back to here. That's how you can check your answers. Last but not least, just wanted to show you that you can use graph paper to do your math problems as well. I have one here with my acronym at the top. You may have to write small depending on the graph paper, but you can do 40104 divided by 2. Using graph paper will help you stay lined up, and here's what it would look like when you're done. So the problem that we did on our previous screen looks like this, but a lot of times when I see students not stay lined up, it'll start looking like a little tornado and tapering off to the right. But keeping a graph paper like this can help you stay completely lined up. Just words of advice to fall on if you feel like you could use that extra little help.